A shy village girl nervously visits a gynecologist, only to discover her doctor is a young, charming millionaire, and he's falling deeply in love with her. What if a single doctor's visit could change your life forever? Io walked down the narrow dirt road. She held a small cloth bag close to her chest. Inside was a bottle of water, a few coins, and her fear. The sun had not fully risen. Birds were still waking. The village was quiet. Io did not tell anyone where she was going. Not even Mama Zina, the old woman who raised her. Not her friend Cam. Not even the women at the river who loved to whisper. Her stomach felt strange again, a tight pain. It had been many weeks now. She had tried herbs. She prayed. She waited. But nothing helped. She heard women at the river say things in low voices. Things like, maybe something is wrong with her womb. She is cursed. That girl is too quiet. Io stayed silent. She always stayed silent. She had never been to a doctor before. In her village, people went to the herbalist. But this was different. Something in her heart told her it was time. Can you imagine facing your deepest fears for a chance at healing? Stay tuned to Real Stories Diary to find out what happens next. She reached the main road and saw the small bus waiting. The driver looked at her. You going to the city, girl? She nodded. You got money? She opened her hand. 3 small coins. The man sighed. Get in. I'll take you. She climbed into the back of the old bus. The seat was torn, and the window wouldn't close. But Io didn't care. Her heart was beating fast. She looked out at the trees as they drove away from Riverbend. She thought of Mama Zina. Would she be angry? Would she be proud? Io whispered to herself, it's just a checkup. Nothing scary. I'll come back before sunset. But deep down, she was afraid, not just of doctors. She was afraid of being seen, of being touched, of being known. As the city buildings grew taller in the distance, Io closed her eyes and held her bag tight. She did not know that her life was about to change forever. The clinic was quiet, too quiet. Io sat on a hard blue chair. The room smelled like soap and clean floors. The walls were white. The lights were too bright. She held a form in her hands. It asked for her name, her age, her pain. Her fingers shook. She had never been in a place like this. No chickens, no firewood smoke, no soft hum of old women talking under trees. Just silence, glass, and fear. A door opened. A nurse in white shoes stepped out. Io from Riverbend. Io stood quickly. Her legs felt weak. She followed the nurse down a shiny hallway. Every step echoed. You can sit here. The doctor will come soon. Io sat on a chair inside a small room. There was a strange bed with metal arms. Io looked away. She whispered to herself, be brave, Io. You are not a child. Just talk, then leave. Then the door opened again. And everything changed. Io looked up and forgot how to breathe. The man who walked in was not old. He was not slow. He did not carry a walking stick or wear big glasses. He was tall, strong. His white coat moved like soft wind. His skin was the color of deep earth after rain. His eyes were dark like midnight water. His voice, when he spoke, was deep and smooth. Good morning. I'm Dr. Camo. You must be Io. Io could not speak. He smiled kindly. Don't be nervous. You're safe here. She nodded once. Her cheeks burned. Dr. Camo sat down across from her. First time seeing a doctor? She nodded again. He looked at her gently. We'll go slow. Nothing happens unless you say yes. Do you have any questions? Io opened her mouth, then closed it. She shook her head. He saw how her hands twisted in her lap, how she kept her eyes low. Dr. Camo had seen many patients, loud ones, scared ones, proud ones, but never one like Io. She was like a small bird ready to fly away, and something in his chest stirred. He wanted to help her, but not just as a doctor, something more. Io sat nervously on the edge of the examination bed, eyes darting to the silver instruments on the tray. Dr. Camo pulled on his gloves slowly, speaking gently. "We'll go step by step. If anything feels uncomfortable, just say stop. Nothing will happen without your permission." She nodded, barely breathing. He handed her a gown. "You can change behind the curtain. I'll step out and knock when I return." A few moments later, the room was quiet again. When the exam began, Io's eyes wide, hands gripping the sheet, her breath short. Dr. Camo's voice, steady and low. "You're doing well. Almost done." Her eyes glistened. One tear escaped, not from pain, but from the weight of being exposed, truly seen. Dr. Camo quietly marked notes on the chart. He didn't look up. He felt it, too, the weight of what he'd seen. Not just her body, but her silent fear. Dr. Camo sat across from Io, her chart in hand. His voice was low, gentle. "Io, your pain is real. It looks like an infection. Pelvic inflammatory disease. It's common and treatable, but we need to act soon." Io gripped her cloth bag tighter. Her eyes stayed down. "This didn't happen because you did something wrong," he said softly. "It's not a curse. It's not your fault. You were brave to come." She looked up briefly, tears in her eyes. Her lips trembled. "I'll help you," Camo added. "If you let me." Suddenly, Io stood. "I have to go." "I'll come back," she whispered, already turning away. She walked out quickly past the nurse, past the stairs, heart pounding. On the bus home, she didn't look back. And in the quiet room, Dr. Camo stared at the empty chair. "I hope she returns," he whispered, "before it's too late." The bus ride home felt longer this time. The road was the same, but her heart was heavy. The city disappeared behind her. Trees and fields passed by like shadows. When Io reached Riverbend, the sun was almost gone. The chickens were already in their coops. The women had left the river. Mama Zena sat outside peeling yams, the woman who took responsibility for Io after her parents died in a plane crash coming back from America. She provided Io more than she could afford. She loved her so much. "Where have you been all day?" she asked. Io paused, then said softly, "Nowhere." Mama Zena looked at her face. The girl's eyes were red, her voice small, but Mama said nothing. That night, Io lay on her mat and stared at the roof. She thought of Dr. Camo, his calm eyes, his gentle voice, the way he said, "You're safe here." But Io did not feel safe. Not inside, not with herself. She felt ashamed. Ashamed that she had been seen, touched, questioned. The next morning, the clinic called. Io did not answer. They called again the day after. She let the phone ring. The pain in her body returned, stronger this time, like a fist tightening inside her. But still, she said nothing. She smiled at Mama Zena. She helped grind the maize. She fetched water. She laughed at the children's games. But inside, she was afraid. Afraid of what the doctor had seen. Afraid of going back. Afraid that if she spoke, the whole village would know. In the city, Dr. Camo sat at his desk. He looked at the empty slot in his calendar where Io's follow-up should have been. He waited, and when she never came, he looked out the window and wondered why. She had run, and he could not forget her. Not the quiet girl from Riverbend, not the one who looked like she might break if the wind blew too hard. 1 week passed, and Io could not take it anymore. The pain had grown like fire in her belly. Her steps had become slower, her nights full of sweat. Even the river water felt too heavy to carry. So early one morning, before the roosters crowed, she left Riverbend again. Again, she told no one, not even Mama Zena. She arrived at the hospital with tired feet and a face full of worry. The waiting room looked the same. Bright lights, white walls, cold chairs. But Io felt even smaller now, like a dry leaf in a big storm. A nurse led her down the hall again. Same footsteps, same soft shoes, same door. When it opened, he was there. Dr. Camo, the doctor in the white robe. He looked up from a file and paused, his eyes softened. "I was starting to think you had forgotten us," he said gently. Io sat down fast, her hands shaking in her lap. "I was busy," she whispered. Camo watched her closely. She didn't meet his eyes. Her voice was too light, like paper. "I see," he said. "You missed your checkup. We tried to call." She nodded quickly. The phone. It was not working. Silence hung in the air. Camo leaned forward just a little. "You don't have to lie, Io." She looked up, only for a second. His voice was calm, but his eyes looked deep, like he was searching for something inside her. "I wasn't ready," she said at last. "I was scared." He nodded once, slowly. "That's okay." No anger, no questions, just quiet. Camo turned to wash his hands. "You're here now. That's what matters." Io watched him. The way he moved with care, the way his words touched her gently, like fingers brushing wild grass. She still felt afraid, but she also felt seen. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He turned to her, drying his hands. "No need to be sorry," he said softly. "Just let me help you." And in that moment, something passed between them, not words, not touch, but a warmth, a knowing, and a question neither of them dared ask out loud. What is this feeling? And where will it lead? Stay with Real Stories Diary as this unexpected connection unfolds. Io sat near the window of a small riverside cafe. The wooden chair creaked under her as she held a warm cup in both hands. She liked this place. It was quiet, like Riverbend. The sound of the river nearby made her feel less lost. Birds flew across the sky in slow circles. The sun touched the water like gold. She opened her book, but did not read. She was thinking of him again. Then a shadow passed by her table. She looked up. It was Dr. Camo. His coat was gone. He wore a light blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His arms looked strong. He held a paper bag in one hand and a coffee cup in the other. Io's heart jumped. He smiled. "I had no idea you came here," he said, stepping closer. Io blinked. "I don't come often." He looked around. "This is my favorite place in the city. The river reminds me of home." "Your home has a river, too?" she asked, surprised. Camo nodded. "Long and wide. As a boy, I fished in it with my grandfather." Io smiled shyly. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat without asking. "Do you mind?" he asked. Anyway, she shook her head. For a while, they said nothing. The river sang in the distance. A child laughed nearby. The smell of roasted beans filled the air. Io looked at him carefully now. He was not just the doctor in white. He was calm, gentle, and easy in his body. His shirt was plain but clean. His wristwatch shone under the sun. "You speak gently," she said suddenly. Camo raised an eyebrow. "Gently?" "Yes," she nodded. "Like water speaks to stones." He laughed, a warm, soft sound. "That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me." Io looked down at her cup, hiding her smile. And in that small cafe by the singing river, something quiet bloomed between them. Something too soft for words, but too real to ignore. The rain had just stopped. The earth smelled wet and sweet. Io sat on the floor of Mama Zena's hut, folding old clothes, when she heard the voice outside. Io. It was Kem, her friend from the river. Io stepped out. "You didn't tell me your city doctor is rich," Kem said, eyes wide. Io blinked. "What?" Kem pulled a small newspaper from her basket. It was old and creased, but the face on the front was clear. Dr. Camo Odinga, smiling, standing in front of a tall glass hospital. The words beneath his name read, "Son of the great healer, builder of Hope General, youngest hospital owner in 3 provinces." Io felt the sky fall. She took the paper and stared at the picture. His eyes were the same. So was his smile. But this man wore power like a crown. She could not breathe. That night, in the dark of her room, Io sat with the paper in her lap. The candle beside her flickered like her heart. "He owns the place," she whispered. "He is not just a doctor. He is the name on the door." She thought of his calm voice, his clean hands, his soft shirt in the cafe, the way he looked at her like she mattered, and she shook her head. "No," she said to herself. "This cannot be." She stood and walked to the mirror. Her face stared back, skin dry from sun, nails chipped from pounding em, feet cracked from river stones, and a voice inside her said, "What has a girl with calloused hands to do with a man whose bed is carved from ebony?" She turned away from the mirror. She felt small again, like when she first entered the city, like when she sat in that bright waiting room with shaking fingers. Io wrapped the paper and hid it under her mat. From that night on, she stopped going to the cafe. She didn't answer Camo's messages. She avoided the clinic because, in her mind, he had become something too big, too high, and she was just Io from Riverbend, nothing more. Will Io's fears keep her from love, or will fate bring them back together? Keep listening to Real Stories Diary. The rain was heavy that night. It hit the tin roofs like angry drumming. Io was late leaving the shop where she worked. Her head ached. Her legs felt weak. But she told herself, just a little more. Just get home. She stepped into the night. The world spun. Her hands reached for something that wasn't there. Then darkness. She woke up to soft sheets and a warm blanket. Her body was tired, her head heavy. And there, by her bedside, sat Dr. Camo. His white shirt was wrinkled. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Io," he whispered. "You scared me." She blinked. "What happened?" "You fainted. A stranger brought you to a roadside clinic. When I heard, I came." She turned away. "You shouldn't have." "I had to," he said. She bit her lip. "You're someone important. You shouldn't be chasing after girls like me." Camo was quiet. Then, in a low voice, he said, "I have known hunger too, Io. Not of belly, but of trust." She looked at him. He leaned forward, his voice shaking. "I once gave my heart to someone who only wanted my name, my money. My life looked full, but I was empty." Io swallowed. "I am not like her." "I know," he said. "That's why I came." She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, "I was scared that I would fall for you, and you'd drop me." Camo nodded slowly. "I have run from hands that were too soft," he said, fearing they would drop me, too. Tears filled Io's eyes. "I didn't want to be a burden." "You're not. I don't fit in your world. Then I'll meet you in yours." Silence. Rain whispered against the window. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled. Io reached for his hand. He didn't move. Then, gently, like a leaf falling into water, he wrapped his fingers around hers. 2 broken hearts, 2 quiet souls, finding each other in a room full of pain and light. 1 month later, the clouds were dark that day, the kind that cover the sun and silence the birds. Io stood at the edge of the road. Her dress clung to her skin. The rain poured like tears from the sky. She ran through the mud, past the trees, across the path that led to the city. She did not stop. Her slippers broke. Her breath came hard, but her heart beat steady. It beat for him. At last, she reached the hospital doors, dripping wet, shaking. A nurse gasped, but Io walked past her, down the hallway she knew too well. At the end stood Dr. Camo. He turned at the sound of her steps and saw her eyes full of rain, her hands empty, her face open like the sky. Without a word, Io ran into his arms. He caught her, held her tight. She buried her face in his chest and whispered, "I'm not running anymore." Camo's arms wrapped around her like roots around soil. His voice was soft against her ear. When the sky opens, it does not ask who is worthy of rain. It just gives. They stood like that, two rivers meeting. Riverbend Village. 1 week later, the drums beat slow. Mama Zena placed her hands on Io's head and then on Camo's. "You are not perfect," she said. "But you are patient, and that is stronger than beauty." The people clapped. The fire cracked. Io wore a simple white wrapper. Camo stood beside her, not as a doctor, not as a rich man, but as hers. Children danced. Old men hummed. Women ululated. Love had returned to Riverbend. Not in gold, not in grand words, but in the quiet choosing of two hearts that had once been afraid. And now we're home. In so many of our communities, women's health is still surrounded by shame and silence. Girls grow up thinking their pain is something to hide, something to endure quietly. Io's story is not just fiction. It's the story of thousands of young women who suffer in silence because of fear, culture, or judgment. Have you or someone you know ever delayed treatment because of fear or taboo? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk and tell us what city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story has traveled on Real Stories Diary.